Ooh, look how thin Agnes looks this angle. Not that thinness should be desired, right, Agnes?
Fat phobia sucks.
We'd like to thank you, J.B. Fletcher, for really showing us the way. You famous author, there's no other like you. So we watched today. Hi, I'm Kyle. I'm in charge of baked goods. I didn't just bake one muffin, it's an amateur baker's dozen, because it was only 11 because I ran out of muffin cups.
Please welcome to the stage, Miss Muffin Cups.
He's looking at the stage, ran out of muffin cups.
Right.
Ran out of muffin cups.
And I'm Justin, punching a pink cup. So we're on episode 9.
We're off to kill the wizard.
We open this episode with an agent called Mr. Gardner, and he's in this limousine talking ominously on the phone to who we find out later is a man named Horatio. He is on his way to pick up Jessica Fletcher and take her away to this amusement park.
He's gonna bring her back one way or another.
Meanwhile, cut to Jessica, who's visiting yet another niece, and her niece's son, she's out in the front yard cranking and tuning a bicycle, because, you know, she knows everything about biking there in Cabot Cove.
She has a bike a lot like this.
And her niece has a really annoying, affected voice. Congratulations, Bert was ready to trash that old thing. The agent gets out of the car and basically says that he wants Jessica to come to Horatio's amusement park.
She's at her family's house, and somehow this man finds her and gets out of a car and walks up to her directly and knows who she is. So I'm not surprised that Jessica doesn't want to be involved in this kind of operation.
Or get in this strange man's car.
We're getting this man's car!
The little boy that's with Jessica goes, "Oh, horrible Horatio!"
Billy has seen the ads on television of horrible Horatio in thick glasses going da 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 da.
Jessica is baited by getting her niece and family excited about going to this amusement park.
This is just a soft opening for press.
We arrive at this feudal-themed medieval castle.
It's medieval times without the food.
Jessica and her niece and the kids are there. In comes this wagon with this poor man who looks like he belongs in a Mel Brooks film, literally just like ready to be hanged.
He's understudy Friar Tuck.
They're taking this man who is Horatio, the famous horrible Horatio.
He says, "Oh, I didn't do anything wrong. I only meant to titillate you." So already I'm like, drop the floor. Then a bugler sounds a fanfare, and then a guy in a Renaissance costume swings in, but then the executioner knocks him down. In his rescue, Horatio gets hanged, we think.
My first instinct was like, this is the murder that we're going to be solving.
Yes. They look down under the gallows and says, "Somebody get a knife," as if something with the stunt went wrong. And then they say, "Call an ambulance," which is not... Eagle-eyed viewers may know that an ambulance was not in prominence in medieval times. And then poof, up on the turret, Horatio's like, "Don't worry, everybody, that was just a spectacle." You could have done a spectacle and kept in the world you've created, but you made it seem like this press event went horribly wrong.
So then after this whole charade, the niece and the children go explore the park. Jessica is invited to the underground offices, very Disney World. On the journey into Horatio's office, they come across
an engineer. The extremely artificial way that we get his name, where it's like, "It's my name, Niels Highlander, on those forms, and so I'll be the one to get in trouble for any safety violations." And then Horatio refers to him as a bull-headed Swede.
We also are getting this setup of Horatio. He sends a hitman. Now he's saying bull-headed Swede. He also says,
"Permit me the seduction before you cry rape."
Which both of us were just like, please kill him. Please let him be the one that goes. Another office they pass on the way in are two engineers, architects who are both vying for vice president. One said he had been promised it years ago.
Mr. Megram, the very nervous, kind of mousy, don't trust Horatio.
And then there's the new guy.
Mr. Carlson seems to be the more cunning. I'm owed this title and this money, and I'm going to get it.
As we're going into Horatio's office, we meet his secretary, Lori Bascom. She happens to be a huge fan of Jessica and a writer herself.
She also happens to be a Bush baby because she has the biggest eyes that I've ever seen. And it's all, whoa, Miss Fletcher, I loved your last book, which happens to be sitting on her desk. The book, which is Dirge for a Dachshund.
Once they're in Horatio's office, that's whenever everything goes down.
He doesn't want to employ her. He wants her intellectual property and make a Jessica Fletcher's House of Murder. He says violence is what pays. And then he says that kids are the one who pay to come and see the violence.
I write for people who read. You apparently stage your bloodbath for tots who have not learned to differentiate between your sordid charades and the real world.
Bloodbath for tots.
It's like Toys for Tots, but messier.
He tries to shame Jessica and he's like, oh, come now, Miss Fletcher. You and I aren't so different. We both dabble in the world of murder and gore. He says, I'm not used to being refused, then pushes a secret button on his desk which bolts the door. And Jessica Fletcher can't get out.
Wonder where Matt Lauer got the idea from.
She hits him with, you must be a terribly unhappy man. He says, spare me the diagnosis. And then she says, my nephew is a policeman and he'll have you for unlawful detainment. And so he unlocks the bolt and she leaves.
We cut back to the offices that night. One thing we know is that Miss Bascom never leaves the office until Horatio leaves. That night, a gunshot is heard by two cops who are standing out in the hall.
Security guards.
Security guards, excuse me. Yes, they are Paul Blart Mall cops. They call Mr. Carlson.
He'll know what to do.
What should we do? And he's like, use the axe.
Tina, bring me the axe.
Get in the door because it's bolted. Miss Bascom is not there. They break down the door to Horatio's office and Horatio is dead, face down on his desk, blood everywhere, holding a gun. So it appears as if he has shot himself. Then Carlson rushes in behind the cops and says,
What's going on here?
Cut to Jess.
Just grilling up some burgers for Billy and Cindy.
That's when she finds out that Horatio is dead because her nephew-in-law, I guess it would be, is a detective. Yeah, we literally have no idea where this takes place. Kansas City gets mentioned, so that is why my background is Kansas City.
Anywhere within a flight range of Kansas City.
So Jessica is one of the last people to see Horatio, but she's not being investigated, but instead asked to help when she goes with her nephew,
Officer Bird. We've done another thing where that Murder, She Wrote goes back and forth on, where either the local police force is skeptical of her and she sort of has to get around on her own and find things, or they immediately welcome her in and say, solve this for us, please.
They said they know the door was bolted shut. Horatio was hit in the head, which is what the coroner's report said, and that's what killed him, and then he was shot in the head.
Yeah, so it couldn't be a suicide.
So Jessica then wanders into the ride tracks to find Carlson and handyman Swede.
Niels Highlander.
Yes, standing by what is perhaps the most grotesque backdrop ever known to man.
It's very Legends of the Hidden Temple.
You're going to be searching the temple for bagels and lox.
First one to get Gemmel makes his way back over the Mo temple. Hey, who hit it?
They're fixing this thing that's behind me, which is a Horatio head that speak.
Enjoy your...
Jess has to get her flight to Kansas City and is greeted at the airport by Mr. Gardner, the agent.
She's escorted from the door by an airport attendant saying the gate has been changed. And she wants to check, and then Mr. Gardner shows up and says, come with me.
He escorts her to a private jet that features Mr. Gardner and
Erica Baldwin,
Horatio's wife,
dressed in black. They've been referred to as Madame Dracula and the Sleaze Bag. All of Horatio's assets are tied up in mortgages of his amusement park properties. But He just took out $2 million life insurance policy, which will not be paid in the event of a suicide. So Erica is very interested in getting that money, so she has to have Jessica prove it was a murder.
And also, Jess is like,
I neither need nor want your money, Mrs. Baldwin.
then give it to the starving orphans. They do.
Erica says Horatio chose a celibate life. With Michael's cooperation, I didn't.
Jessica gets back to her niece.
Lori Bascombe is sitting at the family table. They've planned their commercial break here. So Jessica says, Lori, so good to see you. And she says, oh, Miss Fletcher, Horatio Baldwin is dead and I killed him.
Commercial for Monistat. Lori then says, well, I killed him because I wasn't at the desk when I was supposed to be. Come on, Lori.
Give me a break.
Lori says she was threatened by Horatio, as was pretty much everyone who worked at this amusement park, and that he had secrets and files on every person.
She said, please let me go, Mr. Baldwin. And he says, no, don't you have any idea? If you quit, then I've got all of this dirty information on you and everybody else.
He goes into his office, he slams the door, and he bolts it. And that's the last time we see him alive. Jess and the cop Bert meandering around this office crime scene. Jessica's under the desk, fiddling with things. And they're like, don't worry, Jessica, we've already searched for all of that stuff. We'll never find anything.
You were looking for a door, not a cubby hole. I've had someone on a third date say that to me.
Imagine just a young bear bar, the cubby hole.
That's a cute name. I would go.
I would go too. Jess finds this thermostat on Horatio's desk. She said, why would they need a thermostat?
Phil Carlson says the central unit of the whole building keeps it at a sensible 68.
She notices the smudge of ash. She pulls a match out and she holds it to the thermostat and it raises the needle to, 100 or whatever. And the lid of the desk pops open to reveal a hidden cubby hole. And there's nothing. Empty file folders.
All whole, but no cubby.
So cut to Mr. Megram making a getaway at the airport.
The airline worker at the desk says, okay, Mr. Megram. Ooh. She reaches under the desk and alerts the police that Arnold Megram is trying to get on a flight to Mexico City.
So cut to him running, sprinting out of the airport.
Hey, catch me!
And so he runs, he trips in a parking lot, throws his briefcase in the air, and out spills millions of dollars of money, which immediately people clamor over.
Like a woman in a party dress, is reaching down and is like, oh, money. And he's like, no, it's my money. They're obviously not trying to help him. It's as if someone said, oh, look, a buffet. Oh, well, maybe I'll have something.
I got to pay for my baggage somehow. So Mr. Megram, when questioned, said he was owed the money and ran because he received an anonymous phone call saying his dirty files were going to be revealed. So
he has gotten the files that he knew where they were, and he's making a getaway to Mexico City. I love Mr. Megram's arc. I left my little cat in the care of my landlord, and I'm awfully worried about her. So can I get going? And you were just going to go to Mexico City. You're not worried about your cat.
And speaking of cats, Mr. Gardner's dirty stash of information was missing, right? So they're going to go question Gardner. He is in his apartment.
In a candy cane dressing gown.
He hears a cat sound on his balcony. He's in a high rise.
What's that kitty cat? Get way up here.
It's a Walkman. I guess someone has recorded cat sound.
It is a person meowing. Meow.
He gets mugged and thrown off of his balcony. Cut to the worst dummy.
As it falls, the knees go back and then the knees go forward too.
The reason they killed Gardner was that he was trying to dig up stuff on Jessica. Once again, is Jessica a suspect? No. Jessica goes back to the office and gets a call from the lieutenant on the office phone. She takes off the back of the phone and notices that one of the wires is cut. She realizes that the secretary's office and Horatio's have two lines, 1998 and 1999. One line doesn't work because it's been tampered with.
She has an extended scene about how phones work, and then is asking the security guard, it's like,
what's this number? Well, it's like, well, 1998. Well, and if you called 1998 and it was busy, what would happen then? He's like, well, I'll go to 1999. And then it's like, okay, but what if you called 1998 from 1998? Wouldn't this light show up? Well, I guess so. What if you called one?
And I was like, this is too much.
Just calm down, Alexander Graham Bell. So she has her aha moment with the phone. And this one, it was the wires and the phone switches.
She calls him from her niece's house.
But she's not at her niece's house. She's at the amusement park.
And says, I think I know where the real microfilm with all of the dirtiest secrets are. And he says, where? I think that you know. The ride. You see Mr. Carlson sneak into the ride. Because the ride was not working, some other microfilm is hidden in that. That's why the ride's broken. Somebody jammed incriminating information in there. He opens the face and then tinkers and removes the microfilm and puts it in his pocket. And then Jessica comes out from around the corner and says, well, Mr. Carlson, so funny to see you here.
But I thought it would take you 40 minutes to get across town.
Turns out I was a block away. Gotcha.
And I'm just standing at the end of this very long, creepy hallway.
So we're seeing him in close-up and then her this big.
Like a specter.
Carlson has the gun pointed at her and he says, first Baldwin, then Gardner. What's one more? Well, I've already murdered 2 people. Might as well shoot you.
It's a full Pepper's ghost illusion where she's actually standing around the corner and reflected in a mirror.
Yeah.
So he shoots glass and it just shatters. And then she just steps around the corner and she's like, all right. And all the detectives and police are just standing right there for the confession and they take him in. He was like, well, I just didn't know about the microfilm. Oh, pity me. And she's like, oh, that was a microfilm of my trip to Spain. And we still don't really know how it happened. And they're like, explain it to us, Jess. Carlson yelled at Horatio about the promotion he thought he deserved.
At one part, Horatio, open hand, full body slaps Mr. Carlson across the face.
Horatio gets pushed into a statue in his office, hitting him in the head. So that explains the blunt force head death.
He goes to Horatio's phone and undoes the ringer so that you won't hear a call come into Horatio's phone. He goes to Laurie's desk and fiddles with the lights so that someone on that phone won't see the light on Mr. Baldwin's line blinking if there's a call going in. He goes to his office, forwards his calls to Horatio's office, and gets the gun from his drawer. He sneaks back in, shoots Horatio, puts it in his hand, and then locks the door using the desk secret switch. The security guards hear the gun, come to Laurie's desk, call Mr. Carlson. His phone gets forwarded to Horatio and he answers and says, yeah, take the fire axe and break it in. I'll be right there. Then he hangs up and hides in the corner and pulls his turtleneck over his face.
So the cops axe their way through the door. They come in. As they're over looking at the dead body, he Scooby-Doo's his way out of the room, and then, of course, pulls his turtleneck down, takes it off, and puts it in a bench in the hallway.
Calls out on his way there, hey guys, whoa, he's dead! His downfall was because of call forwarding.
The best button of this whole thing, she's getting on the plane back to Boston to go home to Cabot Cove. Laurie is there, and her nephew Bert is there.
Her actual blood relative niece does not come to say goodbye. She's at home with
the kids, right? So Laurie, she wanted to be a writer, and early on she said she didn't have time, right, because she worked for Horatio. Jess gives her an envelope and says, send me a copy of first publishing of your book. And she's getting onto the airplane. She walks away and she waves, and Laurie opens it up, and it's the check from Mrs. Baldwin for $100,000.
Jessica has endorsed over to Laurie Bascom.
And Laurie.
And Jessica says,
okay, sum it up, Kyle. My summary is this.
Temple? A good guest is like Halley's Comet, seen and enjoyed, seldom and briefly.
They thought the guy really got hung.
Hanged, Billy. Drapes are hung. People are hanged.
I'll accompany you, not because you're holding a gun on me, but because my curiosity is aroused.
Mrs. Fletcher, excuse my French, but what the hell is going on here?
We also...
Wait. Oh, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Wait. No, but sorry. So, I'm sorry, you said you were gonna do a recap and then I got really excited.
I did a recrap is what I did.
I'm just gonna adjust this a little bit.
Don't touch me.
Yes.
Are you frozen? Hello. Kyle.
Da, 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 da.